Hi, welcome to the Building Blocks of Bass. My name's Bob DeBoo. Today we're going to talk about elevating your sound. Okay, so your sound is one of the first things that people listening to you will notice. It's similar to folks checking out how you walk into a room or your facial expressions or even what you're wearing. As Chris McBride says, your sound is your signature, and it is that important. People can recognize you just by playing one note sometimes. Somebody might say, whoa, that bassist has a big sound or a beautiful sound, something like that. But what does that mean? And how do we go about getting the sound that we're looking for? And I think the first thing to have in mind is to have a conception or an idea about what sound we're looking for or what sounds good to you. So there's a bunch of different people that we can model our sounds after or try to be a little bit more like. Obviously, people like Paul Chambers, Ray Brown, Ron Carter, but it runs the gamut. There's a lot of different sounds out there. If you think about somebody like Red Mitchell versus somebody like Wilbur Ware, huge difference in sound, both beautiful. So we want to have an idea of what sound conception we're looking for. We're going to work on 7 different exercises to help elevate our sound. What we're not going to do today is talk about basses, card versus plywood, strings, setups, pickups, mics, preamps, amplifiers, speakers, etc., etc. This is all about working with what we've got in our hands and doing it acoustically on the instrument that you have. So a great way to work on hearing your sound at home is to play in front of a wall or into a corner, because you can hear yourself back more immediately. You can hear the reflections as opposed to hearing the sound of the bass go away from you. We have a different sound behind the bass than what people in front of us hear, is what I'm trying to say. So if you play facing into a wall or into a corner, you get a better idea of what somebody in front of you is going to hear. Another good idea to do with these exercises is to record yourself. It doesn't matter if it's super high quality recording, fancy mics, anything like that, but to record yourself and listen back and listen for what you like and maybe what you don't like, and try to balance the two, right? So come with me. Let's work on these 7 exercises to help elevate your sound. So let's first talk about our pizzicato sound. We're going to talk about the right hand. I'm right-handed, so if you're left-handed, switch this around. It's no offense or anything. We're talking about pizzicato hand and how to attack the string to get a better sound. So the go-to or the standard for playing in a jazz sense on upright bass is to get a little bit more of the meat of your finger on the string as opposed to plucking it, say, like you might on electric bass. That's fine for that sound too. If that's what you're looking for, please go for it. And sometimes if we're playing higher on the bass, that is a good sound. That's a good thing to strive for. But what we're looking for these first few exercises is to play with a lot of finger on the string, and we're not trying to get all of our energy right here from the knuckle. We're trying to get a little bit of the motion of our arm into the string. So we're trying to use our larger muscles and not just from the knuckle. So you could pluck like this, right? And we're using a small muscle. You can feel it up in here in your forearm, close to your elbow on the back right here. But if we're thinking about plucking long term or playing longer term, you want to think about using a little bit more of the arm motion. Nothing extreme. You don't want your elbow flopping around like crazy, but a little bit of extra motion, almost like if you were dribbling a basketball with the palm of your hand, is a good analogy that I've heard before. We're trying to pluck close to the end of the fingerboard and keep your thumb just planted in the back of the fingerboard as well, so we can always pluck in the same spot. Okay. So with this first exercise, we're going to focus just on the index finger for pizzicato, and we're looking for clear, consistent sounds, clear attacks, long legato notes without any changes in dynamics. We can add in dynamics later to this, but for right now, we're just looking for a very, very clear attack in the sweet spot of the bass. So let's try exercise number 1 for right hand. Play the following exercise with just your index finger. And the goal is a consistent sound without accents or changes in dynamics, with clear attacks and long notes. So we're going to shoot for maybe a good mezzo forte dynamic level here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as this is going, just listen. trying to pluck through the string. Here's half notes. I'm not stopping the string like this. That's not what we're looking for. I go to quarter notes. Try to get your attack right on the beat and let the note ring. Eighth notes. Just straight eighths for now. See how my wrist is getting there a little bit? Sixteenths. Back to eighth notes. Again. Quarter notes. Half notes. And let those notes ring long. Are you still at the same dynamic level? That's my goal. Okay, remember you can do this in front of a wall or into a corner and you can really hear your sound a lot better than it just going out away from you, depending on what kind of room you're in. Let's try the same exercise now where we're using our middle finger. So further down the road, we're gonna alternate these fingers. But before we do that, we want to work on the sound that we can get just out of our middle finger. Again, there's a bunch of different ways to do this, but I think practicing on individual aspects of our sound is really going to help us just to be more aware and, of course, to develop the sound that we're looking for. So let's try the same exercise. This is exercise number 1. We've done it previously with our first finger. Now we're going to try it with our second finger in the pizzicato hand. So same rules apply. Keep your thumb behind the neck of the fingerboard and try to get as much finger on the string as you can. And we're pulling through the D string. I'm going to let it rest on the A string like this. And when we go to pluck again, we're not trying to stop the note before we pluck it. We're going to pluck through it like that. Okay, so look for a good mezzo forte volume. Let's try the exercise together. Here we go. 1, 2, whole notes, go. Just listen. Half notes now. Looking for clear attacks and long notes all the time. Eighth notes. Sixteenths. Back to eighth notes. Oh, so try to keep them all the same dynamic level. Here's quarter notes. Half notes. Now we're going to try exercise 2. It's the same rhythmic exercise on the open D string as exercise 1, except now we're going to try to focus on our dynamic range. So we're going to play the same exercise through 3 times at 3 different dynamic levels. So we'll do it the first time, piano, second time, mezzo forte, and the third time, double F. We'll do this time just with your index finger, and really wherever you set that dynamic volume, just set it and leave it there as best you can. Try for no accents or any notes louder than the others, and we're trying to let the note ring as long as possible, so don't let your finger stop the string as we're plucking. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, go. Here we go with half notes. Remember to pull through the string. Don't stop it when you're plucking. Here's quarter notes. Pull through to the A string. Try to get your attack right on the beat. Eighth notes. Still try to keep it that same dynamic level we started with. Here's sixteenths. thumb situated. Eighth notes. Again. Now we're going to quarter notes. 1. Clear attacks. Long sustained notes. Clarity. Halves. Now we're going to go back to whole notes, but do this mezzo forte starting now. You ready? Here we go. Mezzo forte. That's a whole note. Mezzo forte. Half notes. Now your mezzo forte may be different from where you're hearing mine. It's totally fine. Whatever you want to call mezzo forte in the moment, especially when we're just playing by ourselves. That's okay. Here comes eighth notes. Remember to keep plucking in the same part of the fingerboard. 16ths. Eighth notes. Still mezzo forte, right? Plucking the same spot. Quarter notes. Half notes. And we're going to do the same exercise starting with whole notes, except this is double F. Whatever that means for you right now. Double F. Here's half notes. Now don't kill the bass, don't over pluck, because you can definitely pluck too hard. Quarters. This is not for playing all the time. Eighths. Sixteenths. Just stay relaxed at this volume and this speed. Eighths. Again. Quarters. Halves. Now we're going to look at exercise number 3 of the 7 exercises to help elevate your sound on the upright bass. In the first exercise, we played our rhythmic exercise on the open D string with just our index finger. Then we did it just our middle finger. Now we're going to work on alternating. This can be a really tricky thing to do. Not everybody's interested in alternating with your fingers, but when things get faster, or if you need to play eighth note, 16ths, or whatever, then a lot of times alternation of the fingers is really an important thing to work on or to consider. What happens a lot is you get a sound that's a little bit different between each finger. And this is on electric bass too. But what we're looking to do to work on this with exercise number 3 is to alternate with our fingers and look for still a clear, consistent sound between each fingers to where you wouldn't know necessarily which finger I'm using or hear any accents or anything pop out. It's really hard to do. I'm always working on these exercises, so just try it with me as best we can. The idea is just to get a little bit better each time we're practicing. So let's try exercise number 3. It's the same rhythmic exercise. Now we're alternating our fingers. I tend to start with my middle finger on downbeats or begin my alternation with my middle finger, but definitely this can be an exercise where you practice. You could start with your index finger and alternate that way, but really try to be dutiful towards alternating and not doubling up any fingers. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now index finger. Now half notes. Begin with your middle finger. There you go. Consistent sound. Dynamic level 2. Quarter notes. Let's do eighth. Here I'm getting a slightly different sound with my index finger. I'm trying to get rid of that. Back to eighths. again, whole notes. On the beat, hopefully. Mezzo forte still. Here comes half notes. Quarter notes. Eighth notes. Sixteenths. Trying to make sure these are even. We're doing all these straight right now. We're not looking for or really pulling out any note more than another. It's tricky. Half notes. Excellent. So that was 3 good exercises just on the D string. You could, of course, do those on the G string, the D string, the A string, or the E string, or any other open string you might have if you've got a 5 string. And you'll notice that it takes a different energy to play those same exercises, say on the E string, as it does on the D string, or the G string is different than the D string. But the idea is to get them as uniform and under control as possible while still sounding the way that you would like them. Let's look at exercise number 4, which has to deal with string crossing. Now, the issue with string crossing is that sometimes, like I was just saying, we put more energy into, say, the E string. It's a thicker gauge. It takes more energy to get it to speak, right? But if we use that same energy on the G string, it might be a little bit louder, right? Or we might need to feel the impetus to overplay the E string because we know that it's a bigger string and it takes more energy. So one thing to mention with this string crossing exercise is that if we pluck, say, the G string in exercise 4, letter A, that G string's not going to stop when we go to play the D string. So what we want to do in this exercise is to stop with our left hand the string that's ringing. So I'm going to play G, and as I pluck D, I'm going to take my left hand and just touch the string, touch the G string to stop it from ringing. Let's try the exercise now. This is exercise 4, string crossing, looking for the same concept, the same ideals as the previous exercises. Now we're using our left hand a little bit to stop the strings. Let's begin. These are going to be straight 8th, 4 times for each measure, just to get a good feel. And we'll go A through F, and then we'll look at G through J a little bit later. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. So I'm looking for a good mezzo forte, clear attack, obviously, and I'm trying for the same dynamic level between each string. Here we go to letter B. This is the D and the A string. With your left hand, try to stop the D string from ringing when you pluck A. Here's the 3rd time, 4th time. So go to letter C now. For a clear dynamic level. Don't change too much. Going on to letter D, we're just flipping it around. There we go. One, 2, 3, letter E. So the A and the D string. Level, clear attacks, long decays. Here's letter F. Are you still plucking in the same part of the fingerboard or on the string? Is your thumb against the fingerboard? So I definitely encourage you to work on that slower if you need to, or if you would like to. Then of course faster, but still with the idea of having a good clear sound. Let's look at the next 4 letters in this exercise, which have to deal with crossing strings not just between two strings, but between all four of the open strings on a standard tuned bass, that is. So we're going to play, this is letter G. Let's just do it out of time for a minute. This is the G string. Then we're going to pluck D. But what are we going to do with our left hand when we pluck D? We're going to stop the G string from ringing because we don't want both strings to sound at the same time. That'll just muddy up our sound. We don't want that. So again, G, D, and go back to G now. Now we're going to pluck the A string, but what are we going to do when we pluck the A string? We're going to stop the G string from ringing. Now go back to G. And as we reach up to G like that, what I'm doing is my hand right here will stop the A string. So I'm plucking A string, and as I go to my G string, my hand right here is stopping the A string from ringing, okay? So now we've plucked the G string, now we're gonna go down to the E string. G is ringing, so we're gonna stop it with our left hand, and the same thing happens when we go back to pluck the G string. You can see this part of my hand is stopping that E string from ringing. Let's try exercise number 4, letters G, H, I, and J. I've slowed down the metronome just a touch to 50 beats per minute. We're still going to play it straight eighth notes, but it's going to give us a little bit more time to think about the coordination between both hands, because this is not really just a right hand exercise. Even though the right hand is producing the sound, the left hand is helping to extract the extra, or to take away the extra sound that we don't want with the muting. So let's try letter G. We'll do each of these 4 times, and we're looking for a good, clear, consistent, dynamic level with clear attacks and long notes all of the time. Okay, so I've got my thumb situated behind the neck. I'm going to pluck in the same spot or as close to it as I can for each exercise. Let's try G. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Again. Times. Great. So we're trying to stop the strings with our left hand and just have a clear attack. Let's look at letter H. Same idea, except we're pivoting from the D string now. So get your hand situated. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Now you of course can slow this down, you can speed it up, you can pause this video anytime you like if this isn't the right speed for you. Let's look at letter I now. Now we're going to pivot off of the A string. Same exercise. I'm just still using my index finger and looking for a good consistent sound. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Again. One more time. Great, let's move right into letter J. Now we're pivoting off of the E string. And just notice the difference in how that feels. It's really an experiential situation. I can't really describe how you can make that E string sound good, but that's what we're looking for. Dynamic, clear attacks, without anything popping out too much. It's tricky. Let's try it. Letter J. 2, 3, and 4, and. Now, a great way to practice exercise number 4, aside from just keeping it all mezzo forte, is to go back, practice with the different dynamic levels too. Piano, mezzo forte, double F, wherever you like. Or if you don't want to just immediately change dynamic levels, do it gradually. You can do that as well. So we've explored 4 different exercises just with the right hand or the pizzicato hand. Now we're going to turn our focus to the left hand, which is equally important for our sound development. Now exercise number 5 here has to do with how much pressure we use in our left hand, and just really briefly we're going to touch on some core elements of getting a good sound using our left hand. Main concept is to get on the tips of your fingers. You don't always have to do this. Everybody has different sound, but this is a good surefire way to get a clear sound. To play on the tips of your fingers. And also, I'm keeping my thumb more or less behind my second finger right here as I'm thinking about this, and I'm not just squeezing. In our right hand, we were talking about using the knuckle and just using the smaller muscles in our hand to pluck the string, and how we want to juice that up with the larger muscles in our forearm and our upper arm as well. Same concept with the left hand. We don't always just want to squeeze, because otherwise we're going to wear ourselves out, and we don't need to do that to produce a good sound. So what I like to think about is pulling back from my fingertip back to my elbow. As you keep your right hand situated down here on the fingerboard, you can kind of balance the bass a little bit better thinking about this too. So I'm pulling back from my fingertips towards my elbow as if I was pulling back a bow and arrow. Think about that concept. So not crazy, I'm not trying to pull the bass down, and I'm not trying to just squeeze between my fingers and my thumb, but a little bit of both. Now the exercise number 5, has to do with just the right amount of pressure. It's a great video of Gary Peacock showing this exercise in one of his instructional videos, and I think it's great. So here, let's try this. This is G sharp with your first finger in the left hand, and we're going to pluck it. You could also do this arco as well, but let's just try this pizzicato for now. I'm going to place my fingertip right on G sharp and pull back just a little bit, but I'm going to start by not using enough pressure. So start to just try to get that kind of sound, that really not clear sound. You hear the string is vibrating against the fingerboard, and then slowly start to add more pressure until you get a good long clear note, and let that ring as long as you can. Now if you're using different strings, it's going to ring longer or shorter. Different basses are all set up different, but however it works on your bass. Now do this. Now squeeze really hard, actually. Try this out. Just in the left hand squeeze. Don't pluck any harder. Does that sound any different to you? That's a lot of extra work. I'm really squeezing right now, whereas I don't need that much. I'll be able to play longer and still get a good sound. So try this as well. Let it ring long, and then just slightly lift up your finger. You hear how the note goes away? That can often happen as we're going from one note to the next. We don't want that, even if it's just for a microsecond, right? I was doing that really exaggerated to illustrate it, but if we're going, that's also not what we want, right? We want them connected. So keeping that finger down as you go to the next note is crucial. It's a crucial element in this. So let's try on the note A. We're just going to do all this on the G string. This is exercise number 5, left hand pressure exercise and long notes. With A, just put your second finger over where the A would be on your G string, and don't put enough pressure. Just touch the string right now. And then slowly start to pull back from your fingertips to your elbow, with a little bit of squeezing with your thumb, till you get just the right amount of pressure for that note. And feel what that feels like. Let it ring as long as you can. Great. Now, there are some folks that would say leave your first finger down as you do this, and it'll make the string easier to depress. That's a thing to think about too. But I'm not too worried about that right now. Let's try the same thing with our pinky or our fourth finger. We're going to play B flat, A sharp on the G string. Again, don't use adequate pressure. Just get a muted note. And you notice that my other fingers are on the string too right now. So let's get just to where we can hear the pitch, but it sounds bad, right? It's not very clear. Now pulling back, and squeezing just a little bit. Let's see how long we can get this note to ring for, okay? On the tip of your finger. Now we're going to look at our sixth exercise. This is pivoting in our left hand. We're going to work on finger independence, strengthening our fingers, and getting a good sound. So we're looking for an even sound, long notes between each of our fingers, first, second, and fourth. This is our claw, for lack of a better term right now. So let's look at number 6. This is pivoting left hand finger independence. I'm going to set my metronome at 60 beats per minute. The idea here is to get good, clear notes. Same dynamic level, and with no sound in between my notes. So I want them as legato and connected as possible. Nothing like this. I'm doing that just to exaggerate, right? I don't want that. I want them as clear and as connected as possible. One. This is exercise number 6, letter A. We'll do it 4 times. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. How much pressure are you using? How connected are the notes? If there's a big gap between all of the notes, that's not what we're looking for right now. Good. Let's look at letter B. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Connected. 2 more times. Let's look at letter C. Same concept. We want long, clear notes. It's just a different finger pattern. We're going to play G, B flat, A natural. So G is open, B flat with your pinky, A flat first finger, and then A natural second finger. So just the right amount of pressure. Let's try it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. As connected as possible. One more time. Great. Let's move on to letter D. Same idea, just different order. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Great. So you could obviously change up the order, you can change up the speed. There's a lot of variables you can do to this exercise, but if you incorporate this exercise as well to your everyday warm-up or practice routine, it's going to help to develop your sound. So playing exercise number 6 with the bow as well is a really good idea. You can hear how well you connect the notes, and it also helps with pinpointing your intonation, but just for clarity's sake, we're not doing that today. We're only focusing on our pizzicato sound on the upright bass. With exercise number 7 here, we're going to put it all together, and we're going to just work on something very simplistic but essential, which is major scales. We're going to look at 4 different major scales, and we're going to focus on our sound in our right hand, how we're plucking, not stopping the strings, letting them ring very long, with clear dynamic level, no accents. Then on our left hand, we're getting on our fingertips for clarity of sound, pulling back from our fingertips to our elbow just a bit, and also connecting the notes, not letting our fingers up as we move from one note to the next. So we're going to look at the B flat major scale to start. And we're going to try to incorporate all of those elements together. Okay? We're going to do this without a metronome as well, and just hear my tempo and let's try it together. So in your right hand, just keep your thumb planted where it's at. We're going to pluck at the same spot on the fingerboard all the time. Okay, and this is also going to stay in one position. It's all going to be in half position in the left hand. Okay, fingertips, long notes, clear attacks, clarity. Let's try it. This is the B flat major scale. Quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now with the open strings, make sure those aren't popping out louder than the notes that you're fingering here. Again. See, that was much louder than my previous notes. Long and legato. On the tips of your fingers. Careful not to overplay the open string. Great. Just for an example, I'll show the converse of that. Maybe not a great way of playing my major scale, my B flat major scale with a good sound. It might go something like this. 3, 4. See here, I'm stopping the notes, and I'm kind of playing on the pads of my fingers, like this. I'm slowing down, but that's not really. You notice my right hand, I'm kind of creeping up. I see this a lot in players. So my clarity has changed in my initial attack and sound because of where I'm plucking now, and I'm losing focus of my left hand sound. Those are some things to try to notice and not do. Let's look at the F major scale. It's just the same idea, except we're starting on a lower note and playing up to F. So still in half position. Try it. We're looking for good sound, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm shooting for maybe a mezzo forte all the time. But of course you can change your dynamic levels with this. Try to make sure all the notes are ringing as long as you possibly can. 3, 4. Again. If you were to record this, and you might notice that, oh, the sound stopped right there. You could see that visibly, right? Also, if you record it, you can usually see back the levels. So you can see if any notes are popping out more. You can see that visibly, which is a really cool thing. You can use that technology to help out. Let's try the same thing with the C major scale. I'm going to play this starting on my 4th finger in half position, and then shift up to B natural with my 2nd finger, and then C with my pinky, just to catch those last 2 notes. Same going back down, okay? Let's try it. 3, 4. Long notes. Even when we're shifting too. 3, 4. Again. Great. Let's do the same thing with the G string, and then we'll call it a day. 3, 4. Pluck in the same spot with your right hand. I'm just using index finger. You could try this alternating as well. On the tips of your finger in your left hand. 4. Pulling back just a little bit. Accompanied with squeezing. It's never black and white with all of this. It's not one way is the right way, one way is the wrong way. It's usually a balance of a couple elements. Just like in the right hand. I'm using my finger, I'm using my knuckle, just as well as I'm using my arm. So it's all about balance. The real goal here, right, is to listen and hear what your sound is sounding like. Okay, so record yourself, play in front of a wall, listen back, but work on these exercises every day, and it'll help to elevate your sound. Again, this is the Building Blocks of Bass. My name is Bob DeBoo. Thanks for being here. See you next time. Peace.